Thank you.
Who has questions for Tamala? Because I mean, she's amazing, first of all. Let's just say that.
And that's a mirror because you're amazing too.
Thank you. It's in the sound of the name. I feel it's the Tam, you know. Yeah. So questions, friends. What are your questions for Tamala? That was so good. I was taking pictures of your presentation.
Oh, and I can send it out. If anybody wants it, I can email it. No problem.
So good. So good. Raise your virtual hand or just unmute yourself if you have
just
a question.
Unmute. Yeah.
Drop it in the chat.
I don't have a question, Tamala, but I just want to say, holy shnikes. So probably like a year ago, I started a boundary building challenge in my Facebook group. And literally everything that you said is literally on my note cards on my wall. And it lets me know that everything in this, like, what we're talking about is so aligned with everyone here.
Yes.
Because one thing that people don't understand is how important boundaries really and truly are. And I love the fact that you and Tamara talk about boundaries as loving yourself, because I think that a lot of people don't realize the more that you uphold your boundaries, the biggest hug you are giving yourself and the biggest kiss you are giving yourself. Like, literally, that is so amazing. Like, thank you so much, Tamala. Thank you.
Oh, it's my honor. I mean, to be able to talk about it. I mean, and when I was putting the presentation together, I was laughing because it was so long. I was like, you got to bring it in, because I also go into detachment, because in all actuality, everybody's not going to honor it. And you have to be strong enough in your boundary to say, I am worth letting you go in order for me to stand for me. And quick story, when it comes to detaching, sometimes, you have your boundary, right? You may have to detach from someone. You may lose that person, but you have to be okay with that. And this might make me a little bit emotional, but I'm going to tell you guys the story. So, like I told you guys, I have a lot of alcoholism in my family. So my aunt is, so I'm huge. Like I get rude when it comes to alcoholism, because like I said, I had my mom. It got to the point where I couldn't talk to her at a certain time of the day, because when I heard that slur in her voice, it was a trigger for me. Like, it would make me want to be rude, especially because I knew she wouldn't remember the next day anyway. But that's not right. But my aunt, when my mother became sober, my aunt is also an alcoholic, and she decided she wanted to continue to drink. So I had to set a boundary with her to say, I can't talk to you. I can only come. I used to see her like every weekend. I can see you. We can go to lunch once a month, but that's the only time I can see you. And you cannot drink before the lunch, right? Because I love you and I want to be around you, but I can't continue to allow myself to be around this alcoholism. It sets me off, right? So I gave her my boundary. She understood. I get it. I'm not ready to stop drinking, so I'm not going to. And I had to respect that part, right? Because that's big for her. I'm an alcoholic and I'm going to do it. This is what it is. You have to be okay with that. That was her boundary, right? So it was August of 2019. We had a lunch set on Saturday. I hadn't seen her since July because of the whole alcoholism thing, right? And I had that detachment set up. She died 3 days before our luncheon. And that's when I realized that your boundary has to be so strong that you are willing to lose someone in ways that's bigger than you detaching, right? So the first thought that I had was, oh my gosh, I have wasted all of that time detaching when I missed spending that time with her. But once I brought myself to myself, I realized, no, what I did was, by having those boundaries, I made the time that we had valuable. I made it where I wasn't irritated. We had good times. And again, sometimes you have to detach for your own good and be okay with things not turning out exactly the way that you want them to. So anyway, any other questions?
That was so good. I saw Melanie's comment in the chat that she has she's terrible at communicating them. That's her perception.
So that love
And
yourself.
so that love yourself
Oh,
makes so much sense. So what would you say, Tamala, for someone who struggles in communicating boundaries? How do we baby step to feeling stronger in that area?
there's a book, Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend, called Boundaries. They have so many books. This is the workbook because I like to write. But journaling, if you don't want to go out and get the book, he has a website as well. You can he sends out emails as well. Brandy, I'll get to you. I'm sorry. Because I can't read and talk, y'all. I'm sorry.
You have time.
Look, I can't read and talk. I see it coming up. But he has emails that he'll send out. He has boundaries for children, for teenagers, for workspace. Also, guys, there's so many different types of boundaries. There's time boundaries. I'm only going to spend so much time doing this. There's work boundaries. I am working 40 hours a week and I am going home because that is what's essential for me. There's personal boundaries, which is I feel everything, right? You have social boundaries. I'm only going to be on Facebook for this amount of time. I'm only going to be on Instagram. I have a negative boundary. You cannot call me and tell me about certain things that are happening in the world. I need to find out on my own because I'm an empath and it makes me sad. I get very, very sad so I have to prepare myself. I have to zip myself up is what I call it. And when I watch the news, when I read, when I'm on Instagram, I have to zip myself up because if I see certain things, it takes me completely out of my happiness and into their sadness, right? And it becomes where I'm not empathetic. I am literally in it. So I have people know, don't call her with that. Don't do it because she has to deal with it on her own. So that's what I would do. I would journal what my boundaries are. You need to figure out why they're important to you. Once you realize why it's important and why you're dishonoring yourself by not having them, it'll be worth it. Once you and then pick a small one. Don't start big. Pick a small boundary. Work on it. See how it feels. See what it does to your body. See how it frees you. Because once it frees you, you're going to want to feel that all the time. That's what happened for me. Okay, let's see. Hold on. Let me go. We struggle with boundaries because we don't like to feel like you're disappointing people. That's what I feel. Okay, I'm trying to go back to Randy's question. Okay, here we go. Tell me when you brought up expressing yourself to your partner and thinking it's so important. Yes. Yes. Very true. Any other questions, Tamara? Am I missing anything?
You're missing any. I just want to I gave Tay an amen because about the news. I set very clear boundaries for myself around news intake, and part of that is my happiness work, because we know that the way that we're nourishing ourselves is not just what we eat or the exercise or the sleep that we get, but it's everything that we're taking in, every conversation, every show that we watch.
Yes.
People wonder why life feels so hard and why they're so negative, but all they watch on TV is serial killer shows, or they watch the news right before bed or as soon as they wake up.
Yes.
And it's, the boundary that I have for my day is that I don't take in any news for at least the first hour. And in fact, I only listen to the news in my car. That is when I will listen to the news, if I am on my way somewhere.
I have a friend, she continues to, she watches all of the bad stuff, right? She watches funerals on, on Facebook or YouTube, like she's all in it. But then she calls me, she's like, I don't know what's going on. I'm just so depressed. I'm like, you're depressing yourself. What's wrong with you?
Going on. So true. And I love that you listed out the different kinds of boundaries, because and all of them to me sound so loving. I have a very clear boundary with my family. I am a liberal black sheep in my family, and I have made it a rule that love comes first and that we do not discuss politics ever. And if you start, because my mom, she'll try, I will walk away and I will say, I love you more than this conversation. So we're done here.
Absolutely. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, Kevin says disappointing people and then they may not like us anymore. We could lose the relationship, and that hurts. It might hurt. It might hurt at
But
first and it might feel better later.
that's what we have to understand. The immediate, it's like a cut, right? You get cut.
Yes.
That cut hurts. But
Yes.
as long as you're nurturing that cut, eventually it heals, and then you move on, right?
Yeah.
So heal it, y'all. I promise you, promise you. The first time you stand on that boundary, it feels so you are loving you. And honestly, you're loving that person too. They may not recognize it right away. Some people, again, it's people pleasing. And sometimes we are sitting back and we are hurting people by not having those boundaries, right? Because people have to come out here and learn how to do things on their own. We also, another reason we don't have boundaries is because we don't like to see people struggle. Let them struggle, y'all. Guess what? When you have that caterpillar in that cocoon and you try to get that little boogie out of there, you're killing it.
I love that.
And you just watch that caterpillar do this in the little cocoon. Guess what? It's strengthening its wings so that when it comes out, it can fly. Come on. Let's watch these people fly. Boundaries.
I love that. That's so good. Lino has his hand raised. Lino, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Excuse me. Tamala, yes?
Tamala.
Oh my God, I did it. I thought you said it rhymed with Pamela. Tamara.
Tamala.
Pamela.
You got it. It's okay.
Right.
I answered to Heather. It's okay.
Tamala, so my mother is an alcoholic, and she's been an alcoholic since the day I was born. I'm 43 years old now, and it's been one of the greatest challenges for me. But actually, both my parents are alcoholics, and after 48 years of marriage, my parents divorced each other, and that actually led my mother to attaching herself to me more. My brother was also an alcoholic, but he's currently going through chemo, so he lost his voice. He actually had a laryngectomy. He can't talk, so now he can't talk, and she can't have a codependency with him, so she's latching on to me. There's only two boys. And the biggest struggle that I have, and I actually wrote about this in my book, is my mother went through breast cancer and she almost died, and she was sober for 2 years because she was on chemo and saving her life. And when she was doing all that, who came to her rescue? Me, the youngest one, the same one that's been codependent and taking care of her alcoholism, and now I'm taking care of her cancer. And she was in a coma, and it was awful for me to go through and see that she almost died. And when she recovered, well, guess what she went back to doing? She went back to drinking. And so, I mean, now at 43, I have a lot of I guess you could say it's continued now up to being at this age where I still have a lot of anger towards her.
Yeah.
And come the holidays is really what makes it difficult for me, because it's just the three of us, my brother, my mother, and I. And I thought to myself, well, if I don't go see her this past Christmas, I'm gonna be alone. And my brother's going through chemo, and they live together, and it's effed up if I don't go see them. So I go see them, and lo and behold, my brother's sober now, he doesn't drink, and I don't drink. So my mom's sitting there hiding the bottle and just wondering, she starts getting into this depressive mode. Oh, my mom died. I'm like, yeah, 45 years ago. And she's like, and I don't mean to be a jerk, but these things start coming out. Mom, it's been 45 years. Like, you're still crying about it. Like, stop. And then I get into this mode where I'm like, it's the alcohol speaking. Seriously, it's been 45 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can't, and she lives 70 miles away. So I go over there and I'm like, what am I going to drive home now? It's Christmas Eve. I'm going to be alone. I'm going to be depressed. So it starts to really like get to me, and at this point I don't it's really difficult for me to set that boundary because of the fear that you went through with your aunt, that she's going to pass away. I'm going to say I put this boundary on her, the only son that was able to hear her out and listen to her and love her. So what do I do to set a boundary during the holidays with my mother that's in her 70s that obviously is not going to change?
Okay, so you have to figure out what is going to work for you. I mean, I was in the same situation. Again, my brother was an alcoholic, my mom, my dad, my grandfather, and so during the holidays, I was the only one that had small children. So of course they wanted us there, right? But what would happen was we would sit around, in the very beginning, everything was great, right? We'd get there and, we'd eat, and then all of a sudden the booze would come out. But I knew that once that happened, I am setting myself up if I stayed
Yeah.
for being disrespectful. I don't ever want to be disrespectful. I always want to be loving, right? But we had that from our childhood that we're sick of it, right?
Oh yeah.
So it comes out where we're rude, but that's not fair to them, right?
Right.
So you have to do what's best for you. So if it's I'm coming, but only for an hour, I know it's 70 miles, but that's a part of it, right? If you have friends in the area, maybe you need to have, holiday at your house with friends, but you have to do what's not going to set you off because that's what's best for you. And you don't want to ever sit back and disrespect your mom. And the other thing is, even with that happening with my aunt, I survived.
Sure.
Right. I had some time, I had to go through the whole guilt of it. But then in the end, it really wasn't guilt if I was honoring me, right? You
Yeah.
have to honor you. So just as your mom, set your boundary to say, Mom, if I'm there for 2 hours, can you not drink? Right. And if she agrees, then great, stay the 2 hours. But if she starts drinking, you leave. You have
Sure.
to follow through with what you're saying. So if she holds to that 2 hours, then you guys have a great 2 hours. But if she picks up that bottle in an hour, you had a great hour, right?
What if she hides the bottle and takes swigs in the bathroom?
Oh, you'll know. You
Yeah.
know. Come on, Lino, because I've been there. You can see the difference
Yeah.
in their attitude. My aunt would come
Yeah.
down. She'd be like, girl, what you doing? I know you've been upstairs
That's so true. That's so true. Thank you. I really
drinking.
appreciate that, Tamala.
And
Tamala! Oh my god, I
no,
did it
you
again.
had it right the first time. You
What?
said it
Oh
right.
my
You're
god.
still
Oh
No,
darn.
you're good. You're good. And I mean, again, if you ever want to talk, contact me. We
I
have,
will.
again, it's that mirror. We have a lot in common.
Oh yeah,
That's
absolutely.
why I wrote this book. God turned mommy's wine into water, right?
Damn.
It's because, you know, that was, I wanted my mother to be sober so bad.
Yeah.
I took her to Mexico. I told her, see, if you stop drinking, I'll take you out of the country. Where do you want to go? She's Mexico. No problem. Went to Mexico. I treated her, all expenses paid. It was fantastic. 2 weeks later, she started drinking.
Oh.
Yo, you tricked me. That
Oh
was
man.
not nice. But I
Yeah.
had to realize it's not up to us when they stop drinking.
Right, right,
That's
right.
on them. It's up to us to set boundaries around their addiction, right? For what's good for
Mhm.
us.
Thank you so much. I
You're
appreciate that.
welcome. Mhm.
Yes, it is up to us. So, Tamala, what do you do or how would you help people who don't realize that they're engaging in codependent behavior and that who don't even recognize yet that they are letting their boundaries just be trumped all over because they don't know how to set them or they don't recognize that they need to, because this, like we talked about last night, this is all they've seen is
Yeah.
loosey
The
goosey.
lack of boundaries is all they've
Exactly.
seen.
Mhm.
I say the first thing you need to do is listen to your body. Again, when you have conversations and your stomach hurts, your throat is locked, you get tingles, something is off. You have to figure out what that is, right? Why do I feel this way? What would make me feel different? And maybe next time, if I have a different action, do I still have those same sensations in my body? Right. That sheet of paper that I had, let me pull it up. Let me pull it up, because these are the questions. I struggle with setting boundaries with these people is the first question. The second question is, I feel most angry when this happens. Again, that's that body. Like when you have a lack of boundaries, you truly, truly feel it in your body. I promise. I struggle with setting boundaries with them because, okay, actions that I can take to set boundaries with them. Write it down, right? How will I feel when I successfully set a boundary? Answer, right? All you have to do is listen to your body, figure out why you feel that way, figure out what it's going to take for you to not take that with you. What do I need to tell them? Why do I need to set that? It's just like with Lino. He knows that it's actually the alcoholism, right? But then it's also like, for me, I felt like my mom loves alcohol more than she loves me, right? That's something that I had to deal with. So when you don't do the surface questions, get down deep. Go down there with the seaweed and the algae. Get down and don't look at the pretty water. Get down deep to find out why you're feeling the way that you're feeling. I was angry with my mom because every time I went to her house, if I knocked on the door, I had this fear that I would find her dead in the tub. Why? I don't know. But that was always my biggest fear. I would have to, if I knocked, if she didn't answer, I would have to take 3 deep breaths, put the key in, and go in. She's like in the back room or something. I'm like, yo, why don't you answer the door? But that's here, right? You have those feelings for a reason. So you have to get deep down inside to figure out why you're angry. I was angry because her drinking gave me fear. It gave me anxiety. It put all those things within me. So I had to set certain boundaries so that I wouldn't feel that way. Even if my boundary was, if you don't answer the door, I'm not coming in, I would be okay with leaving. Because such anxiety for a 20-year-old is horrible. You have to put yourself first.
Yeah, beautiful. Reach it. I want to go back to something Kevin said. Too often we'd rather be in a toxic relationship than be alone. At least the toxic relationship is familiar and predictable. Anybody been there?
I've been there twice.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll tell you, the science behind that is that our subconscious loves the status quo. Its job is to protect us. Its job is to keep us safe. And whatever we are familiar with, that is what it wants to keep, even if that means an alcoholic parent or an alcoholic partner or some other variation of a toxic relationship. I believe when I was on your podcast, shameless plug for Tamala's podcast, we talked about my own codependency with my ex-husband, now ex-husband, because I did the work, right? But I had to set a very clear boundary as well. I didn't want to break up my family. I didn't want to be divorced.
Right.
And so I set a clear boundary. Could you go 6 months without drinking? Could you go 6 months without drinking? Man couldn't go 6 minutes without drinking.
Right.
So, after setting several boundary requests that he could not respect, I had to walk away.
Lovingly. I don't hate you. I don't hate you.
Exactly. I mean,
I love you and me enough.
Yeah.
Well,
and I love me, and I love my 3 kids who don't need to see this is what a woman tolerates, that this is how a woman should be treated by a man or any variation of gender, regardless. So yeah, so good. There's fire in the chat again. Fire in the chat. Anyone else have any questions for Tamala aside from how to pronounce her name?
Asking the why, not only. Yes, over and over again. Yes, Randy. Yes, yes, yes. That is so true. Ask the why over and over again. Again, people, we change, you know, and the stronger you get in your boundaries, that's going to change too, right? So you might have stronger or more strict boundaries because you're like, you know what? I did that. I was able to walk away from that relationship. It hurt. I cried, you know, but I got over it because once you walk away, oh my gosh, you will be so sad. You might, you know, but then all of a sudden you're going to wake up one day and go, "Oh, it feels good." Yes, the sun is shining brighter, right?
Yes.
But then you'll be able to move on, and you'll have to keep asking yourself those whys, because let me tell you, when you date, you can date the same person with a different face. So if you grow within you, you'll know that's not what I want, and you'll have to keep going there. That's not what I want. Let me make sure, you know?
Yes.
So make sure you keep asking yourself the questions for sure.
Yeah. And you know, that toxic relationship, it hits those pleasure centers in the brain, just like alcohol or drugs, right? So it does become an addiction to be around or within a toxic relationship. It's not just what we're used to. We get addicted to the drama it makes us feel. And I had to recognize this in myself, you know,
Yes.
for years. And I actually had a one of my best friends from childhood and beyond is an addict. And she said to me when I first was considering leaving the marriage, "Tam, you're addicted.
Mhm.
You have an addiction to the drama. It's hitting parts in your brain." And one day, I got a message from my ex. It was after the fact, but I noticed like the hit that I felt. I had my endorphin boost, and I thought, "Shit, she's right.
Yes.
I want it." And I actually would catch myself wanting to react instead of respond, just to push his buttons back.
Yes.
So breaking that cycle, again, it comes back to deep self-awareness and a willingness to do the work.
There
'Cause I
is fun in dysfunction. It's in there for a reason.
That is my favorite thing that anyone has ever said. There is fun in dysfunction.
It's in there for a reason.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I just had my own mind blown. With that emoji down there. Yeah, we get addicted to our own chemicals. Every emotion has a chemical signal, and that is the truth. So being aware of what's happening for you and noticing if it's healthy or not, because there
Yes.
are good endorphin hits and there are
Yes.
bad.
Very true. I love that.
So good. Gem dropping. There is fun in dysfunction. Oh man, is that a truth bomb? I gotta write that down.
I did a blog on that because one day I was washing dishes, and I was thinking about, oh, Lino, this is it. I was thinking about a family function. And I was like, I just want to be at my aunt's house, listening to music, watching my grandparents argue. I want to play cards and yell at somebody. You know, I was just like, what is wrong with me? But that's when you grow up with that. That's what you know. That's where your comfort lies, right? So sometimes when you're sitting in that peace and you're like, dang, this is pretty boring. But it's not. That's where you should be. But you're right. Those endorphins happen. It's like, I want to feel this, I want to do that, I want to talk to somebody. Blah, blah, blah. But no, and that's when I was like, that's so dysfunctional. I was like, but there is fun in dysfunction. Literally.
Yeah, we get so hooked on it, and we have to allow our bodies to and our nervous systems to re-regulate and relearn what actually feeling good feels
Right.
like.
The actual.
Yeah,
Not the toxic. Not the
exactly.
toxic.
Exactly. Oh, I love it. Tay says that's why journaling is so important. That is true. Tay, how do you utilize journaling for your self-awareness?
Sorry, technical difficulties. So I've been journaling for a while. I have last year I started a journal. It's in my closet. I'm like, all right, let's go ahead and figure this out. Like, let's start doing this. I started a new journal this year and probably have journaled almost every day since the beginning of this year. And it is because one of the things that, as we talk about drinking, one of the things that I decided to do at the beginning of this year was to do a 90-day no alcohol challenge. So I haven't had alcohol since January 1st. That was my last day drinking. And one of the things that I realized is that now I have to process all these damn emotions when they happen. Because before it was like I can dull it and I can just go, all right, I'm going to drink and I can deal with this tomorrow or maybe next week, whatever I decided in that moment, right? But what journaling has allowed me to do, it's allowed me to like look at it, break it apart, have all of the overthinking thoughts about it. Like, this is, I don't understand why this happened. Maybe it was this, because you know how our brains do. Mm-hmm. And then after that, you kind of sit back with the things that you like wrote about and you're kind of just like, you really don't know the answer because you didn't ask the person. You didn't ask this person what was the meaning behind this, but journaling allows you to have those overthinking thoughts and then being able to come back and say, okay, how can I handle this now? I just had this situation happen. I overheard something that I wasn't supposed to hear. And the tone, it wasn't what was said, it was the tone in which it was said. And it didn't matter what that person said to me in that moment. I was like, nah, this is definitely what they meant because of the tone. It sets the stage for everything. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I spent a day, if anybody goes on my TikTok and looked through probably, I think it was day 39 that I did of socks. And I was just like, today I am coming to you guys with the realness. Today is the F it day because I was like, I'm vulnerable enough to say that this TikTok took me 10 times to record because I didn't know what to say. But also at the end of it, I was just like, F it. Like I'm just going to allow myself to feel these feelings because now I don't have a choice. I have to feel these feelings and we're going to see what happens. I journaled about it 3 times because something new came up each time, even after talking with a couple of people about it. And then after that last conversation, after that last journaling, I was like, I told my partner Friday morning, and I was like, this is the last time I'm going to talk about this. And then the person who said this thing contacted me later, and they were later in the day, and they were like, you've been quiet. And I was like, to be completely honest, I'm going to tell you what happened. And this is how I felt about the tone that you said this in. And this is how it did. This is what it did to me. But I was able to come to that place without attacking this person because I journaled about it, because I already got the overthinking thoughts about it out of it. And usually it's not always about the reaction. It's about the reflection. And that is what journaling does. It allows you to reflect before you act. And that is probably one of the most important things that I've learned about journaling. Like, yes. I think everybody should journal. Doesn't matter. Wake up tomorrow and be like, F this day, F this day, F this day. But as you go throughout your day, you're kind of just like, oh, wait. And you can go back and be like, today was actually really good. I went and got a latte. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and it really does, it frames your mind a little differently. Like, it allows you to do these things that you didn't even realize that you wanted to do, that you didn't think that you could do. You know, we're so used to reacting because in this world, it's a world of reaction. So if you can, exactly. And if you just allow yourself to take a step back and realize, okay, I am reacting. I'm not, none of this is fact until you ask the person, yes, or you tell this person, like, you're allowed to say, yes, this made me feel this way. Right. You're allowed to do that, but you don't have to be angry about it or attacking about it or blaming about it. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. It could just be like, I was hurt because I heard this in this tone. Mm-hmm. And I thought, you know, and that's basically what ended up happening. And the conversation ended up being better and they apologized. because that wasn't the way it was supposed to come off. And, you know, it was just one of those things. Now, for myself, this does still, you know, you still have these thoughts, but now I'm like, okay, I let this person get too close too soon. So now let's go ahead and create this boundary where they can still be in my vicinity. However, we won't let them that close. We won't let them that close right now, because I realize that's going to hurt, but I still want this person in my life because I still want to create this relationship and this camaraderie and this connection. And I think that sometimes that gets lost in what we're doing because we're so busy on the defense that we don't realize that we don't have to do that. We don't really have to do that. So yeah.
That's so good. That's so good. That's why it's so important to write everything down. Write the reasons for the boundaries. Write the reason that you feel this way. Journaling is how you get down to the deep. Truly is. It truly is.
Love it. Thank you both for that brilliance. Journaling, feeling is good. And remembering too that boundaries can shift and change as we do, because we do. So everybody, round of applause for Tamala. Thank you so much, Tamala. That was amazing.